Hi everyone. Welcome back to English Podcast for Life. I'm Alex.
And I'm Mia. Today, we have a special episode for you. One that we think will change how you see mistakes in English.
Absolutely. The title says it all. I speak English every day. Mistakes make me stronger.
I love that. When I first started learning English, I was terrified of making mistakes. I thought if I said something wrong, people would judge me.
Me too. But then I realized mistakes are not failures, they're stepping stones. I remember once I told someone, "I am boring," instead of "I am bored." The look on their face was priceless.
Oh no, that's a classic. But moments like that help me laugh at myself and learn better. What about you? What's your funniest or most embarrassing English mistake?
Oh, there are so many. But one time, I meant to say I'm very excited to meet you, and I said, "I'm very exhausted to meet you." The person looked so confused.
That's hilarious. But it shows how easy it is to mix up words, especially those that sound similar.
Exactly. And that's the point. These mistakes happen to everyone. Even native speakers make mistakes.
True, I once heard a famous speaker say, "I only make mistakes when I try something new." That really stuck with me.
And speaking English every day means you're always trying something new, right? So mistakes are proof you're pushing yourself.
Yes, and today, we want to share our stories and tips about why making mistakes is actually good for your English.
Plus, we want to inspire you not to be afraid to speak, write, or try new things in English. Mistakes are your best teachers.
So let's start by talking about how we both got started speaking English every day. For me, it was a mix of watching movies, reading books, and talking to friends.
For me, it was traveling and needing English to communicate. But at first, I avoided speaking because I was scared of mistakes.
That fear holds a lot of learners back. But the truth is, every time you speak, you get better, mistakes or not.
And I learned to laugh at my mistakes. Like the time I asked for 3 beers in a quiet restaurant, and the waiter looked shocked because I pronounced beer like a rude word in English.
Oh my gosh, that's a great story.
It taught me to listen more carefully and practice pronunciation, but also to not be embarrassed. Mistakes are funny sometimes, and that's okay.
Totally agree. So, listeners, if you've ever felt shy to speak English because you're afraid of mistakes, know that it's normal. And today, we'll prove mistakes are a sign of progress, not failure.
In the next part, we'll talk about the most common mistakes learners make, and why those mistakes are actually helpful.
Stay tuned. Before we continue, Alex, can I ask, what was the most difficult mistake you had to overcome when you were learning?
That's a good question. I think it was mixing up tenses, especially the difference between present perfect and simple past. I used to say, "I have saw that movie," instead of "I have seen that movie."
Oh yes, those irregular verbs and perfect tenses are tricky.
Very tricky. But I kept making that mistake until I heard it corrected often. That correction helped me remember.
I find it helps to speak and write a lot, even if it's imperfect at first. The more mistakes you make, the more you learn.
Exactly. Mistakes are like mini lessons in real time.
And sometimes a mistake leads to a new word or phrase you didn't know before.
Right, like the time I said "I am agree" instead of "I agree." My friend explained that agree doesn't need am, and now I never forget.
Same here. It's funny how a simple mistake can help you remember grammar better than memorizing rules.
And the best part, when you stop fearing mistakes, you start enjoying speaking English.
Yes, because English becomes a tool to express yourself, not just a subject to get right.
So listeners, if you're listening now and thinking, I'm scared to speak English because I make mistakes. Think about this. Every mistake is a step forward.
And remember, mistakes don't make you less smart or less capable. They make you stronger and more fluent.
So from now on, when you speak English every day, smile at your mistakes. They are proof you're growing.
After a short break, we will dive into common mistakes learners make and how to learn from them.
Welcome back to English Podcast for Life.
Now, we're going to talk about some common mistakes that English learners make and why those mistakes aren't a problem but actually a great learning opportunity.
That's right. I remember when I was learning. I made so many mistakes with articles. Like a, an, and the. I'd say things like, I have idea, instead of an idea.
Oh yes, articles can be really confusing. They seem small, but they change the meaning a lot. For example, saying I saw a dog is different from I saw the dog.
Exactly. But here's the thing. Even if you make mistakes with articles, most native speakers will still understand you perfectly. It's not the end of the world.
Right, and when you hear the correct article used in conversation or writing, your brain starts to notice the pattern and remember it.
So making mistakes with articles is just your brain's way of testing the rules before you get them right.
Another common mistake I see is confusion with prepositions like in, on, and at. I used to say, I am good in English, instead of good at English.
Me too. Prepositions are tricky because they don't always follow logic. You just have to hear them many times and practice.
And it's okay to say I'm good in English at first. The important thing is you're trying to communicate. The mistake helps you learn the right preposition next time.
Exactly. Mistakes are a natural part of learning a new language because English is complex. There's no perfect way to learn it instantly.
And sometimes, mistakes even help native speakers understand what you really mean. Like if you say I go to shopping instead of I go shopping, they get the idea.
That's a good example. And from there, you can learn the correct structure without stress.
What about pronunciation mistakes, Alex? Did you have problems there?
Oh yes, pronunciation is hard because English has many sounds that don't exist in other languages. I used to say ship instead of sheep, which confused people.
That's a classic one. The difference between short and long vowel sounds can be tricky.
Yes, but when you make mistakes in pronunciation, native speakers often try to help or repeat what you said so you can hear it better.
That's true, and it's actually a good way to improve because you get immediate feedback.
Plus, many learners worrying too much about sounding perfect. But as long as people understand you, that's what really matters.
Absolutely, clear communication is the goal, not perfect accent.
Another mistake I want to mention is word order. English sentences have a specific order, and it can be confusing for learners. For example, someone might say, I every day go to work, instead of I go to work every day.
Oh yes, word order mistakes are very common. But again, they don't usually stop people from understanding your meaning.
And the more you listen to English, in movies, podcasts, conversations, the more natural the word order will become for you.
Speaking of listening, sometimes learners think if they understand every word, they're good. But even if you miss some words, you can still get the meaning.
That's a great point. Mistakes in listening comprehension are normal too. Don't worry if you miss something. Just keep practicing.
Another fun mistake is mixing up false friends. Words that look similar in your language but have different meanings in English.
Like actual meaning real in English, but in some languages it means current or present.
Exactly, or eventually, which means finally in English. But in some languages it's confused with possibly.
Those false friends can lead to funny or confusing mistakes. But once you learn about them, you can avoid them.
And sharing funny mistakes with friends or teachers can make learning more fun and less stressful.
Yes, mistakes are often the best stories to tell. They remind us we're human and learning.
So, to sum up, mistakes with grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation, word order, and listening are all part of the process.
And none of these mistakes mean you're not good at English. They mean you're practicing and improving.
The key is to not be afraid of making mistakes, but to welcome them as learning moments.
And speaking every day helps you make those mistakes, notice them, and fix them over time.
We want to encourage you to speak as much as possible, even if you're not perfect. That's how fluency grows.
Definitely, and in our next part, we'll share some of our favorite daily English practice routines that help us learn and improve.
Stay with us. Alex, can I ask you something? What mistake did you make recently that taught you something new?
Actually, yes. Just yesterday, I was writing an email and wrote, "Please find attached the file." But I accidentally typed, "Please find attached the file."
Oh, I've done that too. It's a small mistake, but important in professional communication.
Yes, and I noticed right away when I reread the email. It reminded me that verbs and their forms are important, even in short phrases.
That's a great example of a simple mistake helping you stay careful and improve your writing skills.
And I didn't feel bad about it. Just corrected it quickly and learned for next time.
That's the right attitude. Mistakes aren't failures. They're signs you're actively using English.
Exactly. So listeners, remember, every mistake you make is an opportunity to grow. Don't hide from them.
Embrace them. So far, we've talked about why mistakes are important and common mistakes learners make. Right now, we're sharing how we practice English every day to improve and learn from those mistakes.
Exactly. Daily practice is the secret sauce to becoming fluent and confident. It's not about being perfect, but about consistency.
For me, I start every morning by reading a short article or news story in English. It's a good way to warm up my brain.
Nice, I like that. I usually listen to an English podcast or audiobook while I'm getting ready or commuting. It's passive, but it helps my ears get used to different accents and speed.
That's a great point. Listening every day makes a huge difference. But what about speaking? How do you practice speaking daily?
I try to speak English out loud at least 15 minutes a day. Sometimes I talk to myself, like describing what I'm doing or planning my day.
Talking to yourself is a fantastic idea. I do that too, especially when I'm alone. It helps me practice sentences without pressure.
Also, I use language exchange apps to talk with native speakers or other learners. Sometimes we laugh at mistakes, but it's very useful.
Me too. It's amazing how much you can learn from real conversations, mistakes and all.
One thing I learned is that making mistakes in practice is actually the best way to remember corrections.
Yes, because when you make a mistake and then correct it, your brain works harder to fix it, and it sticks better.
That's why I always write down new words or corrections after conversations.
Same here. And I like to keep a journal where I write a few sentences about my day in English every evening. It helps me practice writing and see my mistakes.
That's a great habit. Writing daily helps you notice grammar and vocabulary you're still unsure about.
And when I see mistakes in my writing, I don't get upset. I take it as a chance to learn something new.
That's the attitude. Also, shadowing is one of my favorite practice methods. Have you tried it, Mia?
Yes, shadowing is where you listen to a sentence and try to repeat it immediately, copying the pronunciation, intonation, and rhythm. It's challenging but very effective.
It is. At first, I sounded like a robot. But after practicing shadowing daily, my pronunciation and fluency improved a lot.
And guess what? You still make mistakes when you shadow. Sometimes you mix up words or sounds. But that's part of the learning process.
Definitely. The key is to keep going and not be afraid of mistakes while practicing.
Another daily routine I love is watching short videos or TV shows in English with subtitles.
Me too. It's entertaining and educational. I pay attention to new expressions and how native speakers use language naturally.
And when I don't understand something, I rewind and listen again. Sometimes I even imitate the speaker's tone and gestures.
That's fantastic. I think learning English is more than just words. It's culture, feelings, and expression.
Absolutely. So practicing daily in different ways, speaking, listening, reading, writing, helps you improve all skills and make fewer mistakes over time.
And remember, it's okay if you're not perfect every day. Some days are better, some days you'll make more mistakes, and that's normal.
What's important is that you keep practicing every day and keep your motivation high.
And keep a positive attitude towards mistakes. See them as your teachers.
Before we finish, let's share one funny or memorable mistake we made during daily practice. I'll start.
Go ahead.
One day, while shadowing a cooking video, I misheard the phrase whisk the eggs as risk the eggs. So I was repeating risk the eggs loudly, and my family looked confused.
That's hilarious. But it shows how listening carefully is important. And mistakes like that are funny and memorable.
Exactly. And I remember the correct phrase now because of that funny mistake.
Okay, my turn. Once, while writing in my journal, I wrote I am interested in learning English instead of I am interested in learning English.
Oh yes, mixing up interesting and interested is common. But it's great you noticed and learned the difference.
Yes, and I laughed at myself because it sounded like I was saying I was the interesting person. Not that I liked learning English.
These little mistakes make learning more human and fun.
Totally agree. So listeners, try to include daily English practice in your life. Whatever works for you.
And remember, mistakes are signs that you're growing and improving every day.
Welcome back to English Podcast for Life.
Hi everyone! Now we're tackling a big challenge for many learners. The fear of making mistakes when speaking or writing in English.
Yes, that fear can hold people back from practicing and improving. But we want to help you change that mindset.
Let's start with the question, Alex. Why do you think so many learners are afraid of making mistakes?
I think it's mostly because of a fear of being judged or looking stupid in front of others. Nobody wants to feel embarrassed.
Absolutely. Also, many people have perfectionist ideas. They think they need to say everything perfectly or not at all.
Yeah, I used to be like that too. I would rehearse sentences in my head for hours, afraid to speak unless it was perfect.
And what happened when you finally spoke?
I still made mistakes. And then I felt frustrated because it wasn't perfect as I hoped. But I realized that waiting for perfection stopped me from practicing more.
That's a common experience. But here's the truth, mistakes are part of the learning process, not a sign of failure.
Right? The more you speak, the more mistakes you make, and the more you learn. It's like exercise for your English muscles.
And here's something important. Most people around you want to help, not judge. They understand your learning.
Exactly. I remember once I was speaking with a native English speaker and made a mistake. And they just smiled and corrected me kindly. It made me feel safe to keep trying.
That's the kind of environment every learner needs, where mistakes are okay and even welcome.
Another reason learners fear mistakes is comparing themselves to others who seem fluent or perfect.
That's dangerous because everyone learns at their own pace. No one starts perfect.
Exactly. Instead of comparing, focus on your own progress, how much better you are than last week or last month.
And celebrate every small victory. Every sentence you spoke, every new word you learned.
One tip I like to share is to change how you think about mistakes. Instead of "I'm making a mistake," say "I'm learning."
That's powerful. It turns fear into motivation.
Also, try to practice in a safe space. Talk with friends or teachers who support you and understand your goals.
Yes, and don't be afraid to ask for feedback. Corrections help you improve.
Another way to overcome fear is to prepare in advance. Practice phrases or topics you want to talk about.
But remember, even prepared speech can include mistakes, and that's totally fine.
Definitely, mistakes don't mean you're bad at English. They mean you're trying.
I think it's also helpful to share your fears with other learners. You'll find many feel the same way.
That's true. When you hear others talk about their mistakes, it makes your own mistakes feel less scary.
What about you, Alex? How do you personally handle fear of mistakes nowadays?
I try to remind myself that mistakes are proof I'm learning. And if I feel nervous, I take a deep breath and focus on communication, not perfection.
That's a great strategy. I do the same. I tell myself, I'm here to connect, not to be perfect.
Exactly. Communication is the goal. And guess what? Most native speakers appreciate the effort more than the perfect grammar.
So listeners, if you're afraid to speak or write in English because of mistakes, know you're not alone.
And we encourage you to take small steps every day. Even if you make mistakes, keep going.
Because every mistake you make builds your strength and confidence.
And remember, the people you speak with want to understand you, not judge you.
Before we finish, let's share a story about overcoming fear of mistakes. I'll start.
Please do.
When I first started speaking English in public, I was so scared I could barely say a word. Once, I had to order food in English at a restaurant, and I stumbled over my words. But the waiter was kind and patient. That experience gave me confidence to keep speaking.
That's inspiring. For me, I used to avoid phone calls in English because I was scared of mistakes. But then I forced myself to make a call. I made mistakes, but the person was friendly and helped me. That moment helped me stop fearing mistakes on the phone.
Those moments are turning points for many learners.
So keep pushing your comfort zone. Mistakes will come, and that's good.
In a few minutes, we'll talk about mistakes in different English skills: speaking, writing, listening, and reading, and how to learn from them.
Welcome back to English Podcast for Life.
Hi, everyone. Now we're going to talk about mistakes you might make in different English skills: speaking, writing, listening, and reading, and how to use those mistakes to improve.
That's right. Each skill has its own challenges and common mistakes, but they're all part of your learning journey.
Let's start with speaking. What are some typical speaking mistakes learners make?
Well, speaking mistakes often involve grammar errors, pronunciation problems, or using the wrong words. For example, saying "he go to school" instead of "he goes to school."
Yes, verb agreement mistakes are common. But the good news is, when you speak, native speakers usually understand you anyway.
And speaking mistakes can be fixed quickly if you listen carefully to corrections or notice your own errors.
Another speaking mistake is using the wrong word order, like "you like what?" instead of "what do you like?"
That one can be tricky. But with practice, your brain gets used to English sentence structure.
Now, what about writing? What mistakes do learners often make in writing?
Writing mistakes can include spelling errors, punctuation problems, incorrect verb tenses, and using words incorrectly. For example, confusing there, and there.
Oh, those are tricky even for native speakers sometimes. Writing also lets you take your time, so you can correct mistakes more easily.
Yes, but some learners worrying too much about making writing perfect, which can slow down progress.
That's why it's good to write often, even short texts, and then review and learn from mistakes later.
Reading mistakes are a little different. They usually involve misunderstanding words or phrases, or missing the main idea.
Yes, like guessing a word's meaning wrong from context, or translating every word literally, which can cause confusion.
The best way to fix reading mistakes is to practice regularly and learn common vocabulary and expressions.
And don't worry if you don't understand every single word. Focus on the overall meaning first.
Now, let's talk about listening mistakes. Many learners find listening the hardest skill.
That's true. Listening mistakes happen when you miss words, don't catch contractions or connected speech, or misunderstand accents.
Sometimes people say, "I didn't hear that," or "I didn't understand," and feel discouraged. But that's normal.
The key is to keep practicing with different accents and speeds, and use subtitles or transcripts if you can.
Also, don't get stuck on one phrase or word. Try to get the general idea and keep listening.
Exactly. Over time, your brain trains to recognize sounds and patterns faster.
So how do we learn from mistakes in all these skills?
First, don't ignore your mistakes. Notice them and ask yourself why they happened.
Then, try to find the correct form or meaning and practice it. For example, if you say a wrong verb tense, learn the rule and do some exercises.
Also, keep a notebook or app to write down common mistakes you make and review them regularly.
And don't be afraid to ask teachers, friends, or language partners to correct you. Feedback is very valuable.
Sometimes, recording yourself speaking and listening to it helps you hear your own mistakes and improve.
Great tip! And reading aloud can also help with pronunciation and fluency.
Remember, mistakes are stepping stones in every skill. The more you practice, the fewer mistakes you make.
And sometimes, a mistake in one skill helps you understand or improve another skill. For example, a listening mistake can teach you about pronunciation, which helps your speaking.
That's a very important point. Skills are connected, and working on them together accelerates progress.
Before we finish today, Mia, can you share a personal story about a mistake you made in one skill that helped you improve in another?
Sure. Once, while listening to a podcast, I misunderstood a phrase. Later, I saw it written in an article and realized my mistake. That helped me remember the phrase better and use it correctly when speaking.
That's awesome. For me, writing an email with mistakes made me realize I needed to improve my grammar. So I started reading grammar books and practicing exercises, and it helped my speaking too.
So listeners, embrace mistakes in all your English skills. They are valuable lessons.
After a short break, we'll share final tips and encouragement to keep you motivated on your English journey. Don't miss it. Welcome back to English Podcast for Life. This is the final part of I Speak English Every Day. Mistakes make me stronger.
We've talked a lot about mistakes, daily practice, and overcoming fear. Now, it's time to give you some final tips and encouragement for your English learning journey.
Yes, learning a language is a marathon, not a sprint. It takes time, effort, and yes, lots of mistakes. But every mistake makes you stronger.
So tip number 1, be patient with yourself. Progress may feel slow sometimes, but every day you speak, listen, read, or write, you're improving.
Tip 2, keep practicing every day, even if it's just for 10 or 15 minutes. Consistency beats intensity.
Tip 3, celebrate your mistakes as victories. Each one is proof you're pushing your limits and growing.
Tip 4. Surround yourself with English as much as possible. Change your phone language, watch shows, Listen to music and talk with people.
Tip 5. Don't compare your journey to others. Everyone has their own pace and style of learning. Focus on your progress.
Tip 6. Use your mistakes to learn. When you notice a mistake, find the right form and practice it until it feels natural.
Tip 7. Find supportive people to practice with. Friends, teachers, language partners. Positive feedback helps you improve faster.
Tip 8. Have fun with English. Play games, sing songs, watch funny videos. Enjoying the process helps you stay motivated.
And tip 9. Remember your why. Why did you start learning English? Keep that reason close to your heart when things get tough.
That's so important. Learning English opens doors to new cultures, careers, friendships, and ideas.
Before we close, let's share one last personal message to our listeners. Alex, want to start?
Sure, to everyone learning English, don't be afraid to speak, write, or try new things. Mistakes are your best teachers. Keep speaking every day. Your mistakes will make you stronger, I promise.
Beautifully said. My message is embrace every step of your journey with all its challenges and mistakes. You're not alone. We believe in you. Keep going, and your English will keep growing.
Thanks so much for joining us on this amazing journey through mistakes, learning, and daily English.
We hope you feel inspired to speak English every day, without fear, with joy, and with confidence.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with friends and keep practicing.
Until next time, keep making mistakes and keep getting stronger.
Bye, everyone.